It's a pleasure to join my NVSBC colleagues, and let's get started right away. I'm here to bring you a snippet of the expertise I've had in 33 years of working with federal contractors and offer you some ideas and tips that will help you be more successful in the federal market. Our topic today, the 5 federal lead sources you need to know, is part of the players and layers methodology. And that's the process that I use when I work with clients. And of all the things that I work with, is the one that leaves them just going, oh, this is it. So 5 federal lead sources is all part of that. So let's get started. Uh, I work with established companies that want to get on the road to winning the work that's right for them. And all of the things that I'm talking about and more, you can find in my book, Government Contracts Made Easier. That's because easy is fiction. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about the players and layers, 5 federal lead sources you can tap, and take some Q&A. But the idea is that at the end of this, I'm going to ask you, what action are you going to take as a result of having been here today? So get ready to take some notes. Think about how the things and ideas that you're seeing relate to what the business you want to win. Ask lots of questions in the chat, and I'll address those as we get to the end. In short, if federal contracting were easy, everybody would do it. The fact that you're here and wanting to learn more is testament to the fact that it's not. What I call opportunity illusion is killer for small government contractors. You'd think it would be easier than ever to win federal business. Back in the day, 1988, when I first got to Washington, D.C., the source of published opportunities was the Commerce Business Daily, published by the Department of Commerce, came out daily on tissue paper publication in 6-point type. It's the reason I now wear corrective eyewear. And now with all these databases and services, you think it'd be easier than ever to find and win opportunities. It's not, is it? What I've discovered is what makes all the difference and turns that massive flow of stuff landing in our inboxes and what I call the symptom of opportunity illusion, asking, what can I bid? If you've ever been to the optometrist, you're sitting in front of the huge set of lenses and they're saying, better A or B, flip, better A or B, flip. And suddenly they go, I can see. That happens. Opportunity illusion resolves when you stop looking at all these contract notices and databases and stop asking, what can I bid? And start asking, who's my buyer? And how can I get in front of them a lot sooner? So that asking who's my buyer becomes the lens through which I want to encourage you to view the world. It's the single biggest shift and the toughest shift that the companies that I work with make. And we're wired to look for, where's the win? Where's the thing I'm going to bid? And taking a step back from that takes time to learn how to do. It's like learning a new kind of workout. And it's one of the most valuable shifts that I want to encourage you to make today. The thing that so many government contractors discover too late is this, and you know this from your own experience, that Govcon, it's a relationship game first and foremost, the same as commercial. And if you agree with me, just drop yes in the chat. I want to see, I'd love to see some activity in the chat. So if you agree with me that federal contracting is a relationship game, drop it in the chat. I want to see your sense of that. What am I getting in the chat or in the Q&A? Got it. Yeah. So I want to ask you the question for a moment. And again, please drop it in the Q&A. What, in business terms, what's a lead in business terms? Drop it in chat or Q&A. When you think about what's a lead, how would you define a lead in business terms? I'm going to share the answers that show up. I really need your participation here. What's a lead? Think about it in business terms. What would you call a lead? Write it down. I need your answers. What's a lead when you think about business terms? Is a lead a contract notice? Is a lead a procurement forecast? Is a lead an industry day? What's a lead? Opportunity, says Vince. Okay. What else? What's a lead in business terms? Because I'm going to give you a really specific definition. A person, yes. Heather, yes, you got it. Sterling says a lead is an opportunity to understand the needs of a potential client that can be measured against your portfolio. Opportunity with a known buyer, says Norris. All right. I love the way this is coming together. Excellent. Thank you. So a lead, the way I think of it, a lead is a person, first of all. A lead is a person whose role, activity, and visibility points the way to an opportunity. Think about it in detective terms. I mean, who's your favorite detective in real life or history or fiction? Drop it in the chat. I'd love to know. Because when you think about the stories that you hear of how detectives do their work, let's see your favorite detective names, a real or ensemble cast, Sherlock Holmes, Hercule Poirot. Where are my Columbo fans? Let me see them. Because the activity that unrolls, the story arc, always involves the team, whether it's in the bedroom or the bar room or the squad room. They're sitting there saying, what leads do you have? What human intelligence, signal intelligence, electronic intelligence, it's espionage terms sometimes they're talking about in the spy shows. But what leads do you have? The leads are real people. The leads are what leads are you following up on in order to solve the story, to unpack the story? That's the job that you have as well in federal business development. You're a detective. These folks in reality and in fiction, they're running down the story, figuring out that story as though lives depended on it. In government contracting, your business depends on your ability to unpack that story. And so our mission is to be relentless and figure out who are all of the people that are involved in making that story happen. I was fascinated in talking with a recent client, one of my clients, and they had won a multi-million-dollar contract to put up indestructible temporary shelters for as aircraft hangars at China Lake. And in some ways, they didn't really know not only why they had been successful, but when we talked about leads, when we talked about players at all the layers, they went, oh, we just thought these were names that were copied on the email. We never realized that these people all had a role in why we won the business. We didn't even know who these people were, and we didn't even bother to find out. So if you have already won federal business, then your best leads are actually in the first group I'm going to talk about. They're among the people you already know. Someone who's already done business with you, who's paid you money, is 12 times more likely to award you new work than somebody who's never heard of you. Now imagine that. And I fall into this trap all the time. All of the expensive, complex, powerful marketing automation tools we have are not always as important as taking the time to say, what's our plan or our strategy to nurture relationships and conversations with the people we already know? So I'm going to give you not 5, but 6, under promise, over deliver, 6 free federal lead sources that winners use. And I will tell you that one of my clients just called me on Friday and told me about a $15 million win. And that was their first win in the federal arena because they mastered what I'm going to show you now. The first lead source are your current clients. Now, my challenge to you is this. If you have written down in one place, whether it's a spreadsheet, a database, a place where all your team members can share, have you brought together the full contact information and the story, everything you know about them and who talked to them last, of each of the individual people who's had a role in helping you win the business you've already won? When did you talk to them last? When did you last say thank you for doing business with us? How are you doing? When was the last time you talked to those folks? One of the biggest complaints I get from folks in the federal arena are those contracting officers. They're always moving. You think they're there and then they get rotated on. Hey, if they move, want to give you a tip. You get a twofer. If you if you find out that they've moved on, following up, find them on LinkedIn, find them somewhere else, following up to just say, hey, how are you doing in the new job? We're thinking of you. Stay in touch, even if it's 2, 3, 4, 6 months. You know what it's like. You're a veteran. When you get reposted, you've got family to take care of, you've got a new job to take care of, you've got a new boss to understand, you've got leftover stuff from the old job that somebody's got questions, all those things. It's tough. So don't be surprised if it could take 2, 3, 4, 6 months for that person who moved on to answer your calls. When they do, think about it. When you were in a new job, how did it feel to have someone say, hey, I've been thinking about you. How are you doing? Doesn't that feel great when somebody's been just thinking of you and, hey, anything I can do to help you in the new job? Somebody who's in the new job, not only if they've had a good experience in working with you, probably knows new people you need to know, but they may be more able to talk a little bit within appropriate boundaries of what they can now tell you that they couldn't tell you before about what's happening in the shop they just left. They may be able to introduce you to the person who is their successor, offer you some other insights into what's coming down the pike in the shop they were leaving. So everybody understand something about how a conversation with somebody you kind of gotten out of touch with, but they're your current clients, can be helpful. If that's the case, write the word current in the chat. I'd love to see who's got a sense now of how you have an idea for a conversation you could have with a current client that might open out some new possibilities, give you some new insights. Let's see. Drop it in the chat. Drop the word current in the Q&A. If you can see that this gives you starts you thinking, got some new ideas for sure. So be sure to write it down one way or another, because this is information that you want to share among your team. Thank you, Sterling. Sterling's seeing it. Yeah, absolutely. Second, lead source. And for both the last set, your current clients, and this set, current contacts, you need to get out of your own way to tap these two, the easiest and most powerful sources. And here's why. I'm going to welcome you into my personal no guilt zone. Okay. We are tough on ourselves. We've been in jobs where lives have depended on our performing perfectly every day, every time. I get that. You don't want to cut yourself any slack, even though you're running your own company, you've got daily responsibilities, which can feel really hard when you're not living up to that high place you set the bar every single day. Let it go a little. Remember that these people that you are wishing you had called back, they've also been busy. They've also been dealing with the stress of pandemic, worried about their families, worried about doing their best, trying to outperform under really difficult circumstances. So they're actually not going to feel bad, either your current clients or your current contacts, people you know of. When you call them up and maybe it's been 5, 6, 12, even 18 months, and you call them up, you say, hey, I've been thinking of you. First, how are you? and listen for the answer. These are people who know you, who know of you. If you've been meaning to call them, it's okay. Get to it. Now, this current set of the second set of contacts are ones that they haven't done business with you, but they're aware. They may be aware of you. They may be the people that you wrote a proposal for and you weren't successful. Whether or not the FARs entitle you to ask for a debriefing, you can get follow-up feedback, even if it was a while ago. That's a reason why you can get in touch with them. I love the advice that my friend John Sanders, who was the founding publisher and editor emeritus of Washington Technology, used to give. If you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. Ask these folks for advice. They know you well enough. They may have seen your response to a request for information, your response to a source is sought. You can ask them for some feedback on your capability statement. You can show them some of the lists or research you've been doing and say, hey, I know you know something about our field and what we do. Here's some of our business is growing and we're looking for new projects. Say it again. Our business is growing and we're looking for new projects. There, that's not hard. You're not begging. If you were me, who would you be talking to? Here's some of the ones we're starting with. Who are we missing? Ask for advice, ask for guidance. You can ask them for some feedback on your capability statement, because sort of like your website, who's not working on the next edition of our website or our capability statement? Ask for some feedback. What are they going to do? They're going to read it. All good. Another way to be top of mind. And so people who know of you, you've got a little bit of two-way awareness. Then you have folks that you're aware of from the point of view of leads. You've seen their names on other government documents, other bid documents. You've done some research. They're popping up. They don't know who you are yet. Or this is my favorite. The picture you see on the screen is one of my piles of business cards. Ones of the ones that murmur to me while I'm trying to sleep. So you didn't call us, you didn't call us, you didn't call these people. So the ones you didn't call back, it's okay. Sort them out, put them in some priority order. Look at the ones that have job descriptions of end users, people whose titles suggest they are responsible for the consequences of choosing a supplier like you. And follow up with your end users. Remember that the small business specialists are not your buyers. Almost 99.9% of the time. Sometimes they're my buyers because I'll do they will hire me to go and create some training for the small business office, but they're not your buyers. The more you come to them, the small business specialists, with some partially done research, some ideas, some requests for feedback. I was counseling a couple of my clients today to ask the small business specialist if they could help you with a 10-minute, give you feedback on a 10-minute rehearsal of your capability presentation. And after they finish giving you feedback, next follow-up, you can say, hey, would you help us refine a guest list? Could you help us bring together some folks for a capability presentation? So these are the kinds of things that are possible with folks who are current contacts. They haven't yet done business with you. They may know other people, even if they're not your people, that you should be talking to. If some of these ideas are useful, drop the word contacts in the chat. If some of these ideas are useful to you. So if you've met them, if you bid but not won, that can feel uncomfortable. Gee, we lost. We don't want to call. If you haven't talked to them after you've bid, you have no idea. They might have really liked you. One of my favorite stories comes from Neil Wilson, Navy veteran with gear engineering. And that was an aquifer specialist in Florida. And Neil he was really frustrated. He said, I can't believe it. I've spent the whole year wandering all over the Southwest in Alabama and Florida and Georgia and Louisiana and everywhere they say, oh, we love service disabled veteran owned small businesses. We love to award contracts to veterans. Yakety, yakety, yak. He said, I spent $65,000. That was my money for the whole year. I got nothing. I said, all right, Neil, let's look at what's going on and sort out your cards. Now, really close to you are opportunities that are at, say, Kennedy Space Flight Center and Veterans Affairs. And in Florida. So let's make that your A list, take all the rest of the cards, put them in a separate pile, tell them, I'll get back to you. Like, not the people, just the cards, and then look at what's happening in your patch. And he found something that he could bid at a VA medical center. And he bid and he lost. I said, well, Neil, what happened? He said, well, I lost. I said, but did you get a debriefing? He said, a what? I said, a debriefing. Go in and get some feedback, find out what they thought. He came back to me and said, well, they said that they liked what I could do. And they said there were some things I should do differently next time, but they pointed me to something else they wanted me to bid. And he bid that one and he won it. And that gave him the win that put him on track for growing his business significantly over the last 15 years. I am so proud of him. You may run into him now at a Society of American Military Engineers event. He's one of the leaders in the community, and all of that happens when you start to focus and follow up with the people who have seen you put your best foot forward. All right. Next, lead source. You're looking at the footprint of contracting activity. Every single place that there is past, present, and future intelligence is published in forecasts, intelligence that is published and part of contract notices for things that are everything from pre-solicitation notices, sources sought, requests for information, actual requests for proposal, even the industry day notices, the stuff that's showing up in SAM.gov, and the things that are showing up in past federal contract data, so past, present, future. This is a flip the lens exercise. Rather than looking at those things for what can I bid, I want to encourage you to take a step back and say, who's my buyer? Who are the federal humans involved in this? Because remember that when you see something coming up and published as a solicitation, and it's set aside, especially if it's set aside for veteran-owned small business, or SDVOSB, or for 8A SDVOSB. Remember that in order for that to be set aside, if you are seeing this with less than 30 days to go, and you don't know the buyer, you don't know the budget, you don't know the incumbent, and you don't know the history, your odds of winning are in the single digits. Not so good. But the most valuable thing you can do is peel out the contact information from that notice and then start to build out your detective story. Who else is involved in that? Probably the point of contact there is in the contracting layer, contracting specialist, contracting officer. You've got other layers to fill in, but those are starting points for unpacking your detective story. All of those things. So you want to be figuring out, and if those of you who have a GSA schedule, you have access to something that not everybody does, the point of contact on GSA eBuy. If they are not the end user, they probably know who the end user is, who they may be doing the buy for. Okay, so that's the third set of leads. So you're starting with intelligence that's the most activity rich, the things that you have the highest level of certainty that are showing you that these people are involved in making decisions for or buying or living with the consequences of choosing a vendor like you. Okay. And so an example from, in this case, a pre-solicitation notice, when you not only have the point of contact that's on the screen, you can also find points of contact in the documents that you download that are supporting materials. And you can also actually look at the document properties of that PDF or that Word document. Sometimes you'll find author information. Sometimes you'll actually find contact information or identity of maybe a prime that developed some of the statement of work language. Documents have funny footprints. look for other people's. And remember, if you're sharing a white paper, remember to strip that stuff off. Okay. And so that's an example there. So Jameek Morris, in this case, is the contract specialist and lease acquisition coordinator for this particular opportunity. And we're going to use that point of contact information as a starting point for one of our other lead sources. Next lead source is agency directories. So I'd love it if you would drop in the chat if there is a federal agency that you've looked at their content, their employee directory, and you found it really good. So please share in the chat with each other. What are the best employee directories? I want to see who's found I've got a couple of real winners and I'm curious to see who's found them. So some agencies, not so good. State Department, they have a PDF. It's not bad, but you've got to go Control F and page your way through it. So who's had a great experience with an employee directory? And I'm going to actually give you another thought about that. DLS, interesting. Okay, DLS. Okay, Defense Logistics Service. I'm not sure what DLS is, whether DLS or DLA. Okay, and so who else has got a good experience with an employee directory? One of the other places that you can go is the Public Affairs Office. You might not have thought of that, but remember this. Public Affairs is part of the Continuity of Operations team, the COOP team. The COOP team is responsible for being able to stand up operations in case of disaster, and they've got to go and reconstitute everything and get the operation up and running in 24 hours. So Public Affairs, they've got the agency phone book. They know where everybody is. And so a way into the hearts and minds of Public Affairs is if you have some idea of who the program is you need to be talking to, who the people are you're looking for, start with the Public Affairs Office. Take a look at their press releases. There's nothing a public affairs officer loves more than knowing somebody read their press release. Ever put press release out? Ever wonder if anybody reads them? Government public affairs offices are completely thrilled that anybody saw their stuff at all. And so to say, hey, I read about this thing, I read about this program or project, they're often looking for stories or publishing stories about things that have gone on at the base or the office or the command. And so being able to come in and talk to them about a story they've just published, and then ask for your way around to find some specific information. A lot of the time, remember, these are public servants. Our tax dollars pay for them to be there. It's their job to be helpful. They're unlikely to hang up on you. And so who else? A DLA, yep. And so who here would like to do business with Health and Human Services? Put HHS in the chat. Who would love to do business with Health and Human Services? Health and Human Services has one of the best employee directories of any federal agency. If you have not looked for the employee directory of your target agency, you better believe that your competition has. Health and Human Services, honestly, much better and more comprehensive than Veterans Affairs, which is really frustrating to navigate if you're hoping to get a directory online. If you start out by knowing what some of the titles are for end users that you want to be working with, and you find the Health and Human Services employee directory by just searching on end users, keywords and end user titles, you can start to build out your map of who your people are. Different agencies have different ones. Now, some agencies like Army Corps of Engineers, you'll find some directories in there at the district level. So there's not going to be something that's hanging off the small business page. Some agencies don't have much, but this is another valuable place where you can find sometimes biographies of agency leadership. Some agencies or commands will also give you titles, mail stops, phone numbers, email addresses. And so you can start to build that out. Okay? Yeah, Norris, you are going to like this. I am so happy because to be able to offer you something that I hope your team is mining makes me completely thrilled. And so the small business pages are usually a starting point. Remember that if your agency is organized into regions, into districts, say Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation, they're going to have a special agent in charge in a particular office. And so understand how your agency or your target department is organized, and then look at the divisional or small breakout levels for employee directories. Next lead source, LinkedIn, LinkedIn, LinkedIn. Here's my next question for you. How many federal employees, current federal employees, do you think are on LinkedIn today? Tell me your number. What do you think it is? What number do you think it is? I would love to know. Federal agencies have active strategies for most of their employees, not in the intelligence community so much, but other departments and agencies actively encourage federal employees to be in contact with and be visible to the public. Lots of folks in government also rotate in and out of government service and into the private sector. So having visibility is important for them for career development purposes. But they also need to talk to us as industry. Dan is right. Over 2 million current federal employees are on LinkedIn now. Mark Amtower does an annual audit to figure out the number. And that's typically what's coming up. When I did a search on first and second level connections of people who were in contracting roles in federal agencies, I had over 41,000 people who were 1 or 2 degrees removed from me. And so connect with me on LinkedIn. Put NVSBC send a note saying NVSBC so I'll know how we know each other. And that'll leave you 1 degree more closely connected. Federal employees watch a lot. They might not correspond with you, but they might. When you make a request, a connection request on LinkedIn, for the sake of goodness, don't just hit the connection button. And I know I've done that mistakenly on my phone because sometimes it doesn't bring up the pop-up saying send a note. Send someone a note explaining your role, why it is that you think it would be valuable for the two of you to be in contact, and make it interesting for them. Show what's in it for them. Why should they bother connecting with you? Take a look at the groups that are relevant to the contacts that you're working with. Look at what groups that the contacts you want to work with are in. You can monitor those groups, audit. First, start by listening rather than, oh, good, I need to broadcast or put ads out. Oh, you don't. You do need to invest your time. And so on LinkedIn, first, you can start with an end user title search. You can also search for your target agencies and titles like contracting or contracts or procurement or purchasing. See what groups they're in, see who you are first and second level connected with. You can ask to join the groups where your people are hanging out. Notice who is posting and who is active. There's lots of LinkedIn groups that aren't active, but some are. Next step is not to dump content up there, but then like, share, comment, engage. Let people know that you're watching. Funny way to make friends, maybe. People notice. If you are active on LinkedIn, you know how much time you invest in doing it, and you really pay attention when somebody is liking and sharing your stuff. Then you can go a level deeper. I love the advice Mark Amtower gives. If you want to be a thought leader, have some thoughts. You can see what themes are coming up, what problems people have, what kind of issues are arising. So think about what experience you've had, what resources, links, white papers, conferences, what do you have to share? What can you bring to the party? And you can notice who engages with you. So it's not just a matter of go in, peel out names, wait for a connection request and spam them. Look for opportunities to engage in with people who have the right titles in the target agencies where you want to do business. If you've found some of this is useful, write LinkedIn in the chat or the dialog box if you've gotten some ideas that you haven't thought about before. love to see who's thinking, never thought about that before. And so this is a lot more depth than I usually talk about with LinkedIn. And remember as well, your federal buyer checks you out, research shows, at least 12 times online before they call you. They're looking at your LinkedIn profile. And so there's easily a dozen simple things you can do to clean up your profile and make it attractive and interesting so that people get a sense of who you are, the cut of your jib, and get intrigued, may want to go visit your website after all, because they can see who you are and how active you are and what you're about. Okay, great. Then, when you go from the very specific, you can then move out to the more general thinking. So in our example with Jameek Morris, now that I found Jameek Morris on a specific opportunity related to an upcoming lease with a VA medical center with Veterans Affairs, I know that Jameek is involved in buying something like what I do. Then it makes sense to go out and do a broad brush Google search. That's valuable once you know that somebody's probably a hot lead, because taking the big scoop out on the internet lets you capture some of the other places they're active. Federal employees are dedicated. They often have graduate degrees in the things they do. They publish. They make presentations. Their names are on a lot of things besides contract notices. And so GovTribe has a marketing service that has a strategy where they'll let you see a number of things for free, and then you say, and they'll tell you hit the paywall. So they're going to show up on GovTribe notices. They're going to show up on SAM notices. But you may also catch a paper they gave at a conference or something like that. You may catch some of their personal social media. They put it out there. You can take a look. I know for me, when somebody's looking up my stuff, they may run across my personal blog. That's okay. That's for me the place where I share some other things about me. Some of these folks may also have personal blogs. You get a chance to get a sense of what else is important with them, because you're not just doing business with an agency, you're doing business with humans. And these are folks that you think about how well you know your best customers. You know when their birthday is. You know a little bit about where they went to school. There's that real intimacy that you have with the people who actually do business with you. That's the level that you have the opportunity to build toward by, in part, gathering the intelligence as you're preparing for a conversation. Because before you talk to people, you want to get a sense of who they're buying from, how they're buying, how much they're buying, who else they're doing business with, and really start to get curious about them. So these are all sources that you can get a sense of what's going on with that individual person that you want to build a relationship with, and what's that ecosystem look like? Who else is in space related to what they do? Okay. And so how do you know you're getting somewhere? What do you do? What do you say? What do you ask? I'm going to make this easier. Easy is fiction, but this can be easier. One of the things that I remember my buddy Mike Osredker tell me when we were doing business with he was showing up looking to win business, and he was really frustrated. And he said, selling to federal government is like swimming in the ocean with no mileposts. And I went, we can make that better. What if we figure out what are the mileposts that tell us we're getting somewhere? So I want to borrow a secret from apps and gaming. It's dopamine. Our brains are wired to do more of the things that we know are leading us to success. And that's everything from tracking down leads to pulling the lever on the slot machine. If we think we're getting somewhere, we're going to do more of it. And our brains love to win. Our brains and our clients' brains. Something to think about. How are you bringing a win to each of these people so that every time they hear from you, they know something great is going to happen? Norris always says something for me when he calls. So you need to set yourself up for the wins and to recognize even what those small wins are. What does success look like? Here's a clue. you want to be able to recognize who the players are at all 5 layers and focus. So use past federal contract data to choose your focus agencies and identify the right individual contacts. Then you need to create the plan to build connections with the players at all those layers. And then consider, what's a win look like for them, their needs. What's up for them? What the win, your small business specialist, for them, just talking to you could be a win because they need to fill their file with good faith efforts so they can show that they tried their best to talk to lots of service disabled, veteran-owned small businesses. So while hearing from you is a win, you need to get a win back from them. When they say, oh, great, we're going to share your capability statement out, well, that's a nice win for them. But if they don't tell you who it went to, not so good for you. So you need to ask for something that's also going to advance their goals as well as yours. I cannot say enough about the value of mining past federal contract data and mastering getting the ad hoc report from beta.sam.gov, soon to be sam.gov. There are lots of ways to do this, whether that's instructional videos, your Procurement Technical Assistance Center. Our friends at Govology have a lesson that's taught by my good friend Josh Frank. All great ways, and you can even contact me if you want to get some personal one-on-one on how to go and mine this data, but you need to do that. It's available for free. It's an investment of time. You're going to spend time and you're going to spend money. All you get to choose is the mix. So I want to really hone in on the idea of the players at all the layers, because you need to know the people at 5 different layers everywhere you want to win. The contracting layer, that includes the contracting specialist who doesn't have the warrant or the signing authority, and the contracting officer who does. The crossover person between contracting and the end user layer is the contracting officer's representative, the core. So small business specialist, helpful. The more work you do, the more helpful they're going to be. They're the second layer. For sure, you at least, once you've found your way, you've done some navigation, you've identified the fit, let them know you're in the shop. You don't necessarily need to say, hey, would you set stuff aside for me? But they can give you navigational assistance, and they can help you identify whether there's people that are missing. They can give you feedback on your capability statement. They may be able to help you set up a capability briefing. Be specific. The more specific you are, the more helpful they're going to be to you. End user layer. Often overlooked. You might not see their name on competition documents, but they are the ones that are feeding the criteria for a contract award. They're the ones that are stuck with the consequences of whatever decision the source selection board or the contracting officer makes. They're your friends. They're going to give you a lot of feedback into what they like and don't like about their current situation, their current vendors. You need to know them as well. Starting that conversation early starts to shape what they push over the transom to the contracting shop when they're defining, hey, here's what low risk looks like. Here's the things we need to have. Next layer, stakeholder. The stakeholder may be the program manager at the very top level, a director, that may be the base commander. Their themes and priorities affect where the money may get spent. They're not involved in the day-to-day decisions on choosing you. You need to know who they are, especially if your team, your set of contacts is talking about them, so that you know who your players are. And finally, industry. Who's in there now? Who's the incumbent prime? Who are your other competitors? You need to know who they are as well and how you're different, and either a complementary choice or a better choice. If there's one thing you take away from this session, I want you to really hold this taxonomy, this set of layers in your mind. Because if there's one thing that clients take away from the work that we do together, it's thinking about the people you know in this structured way. Because you need to know not only who you realize not only who you know, but who you are missing and who you need to know. And that starts to fill in the whole picture. If you have good relationships at all of those layers, your odds of winning are a whole lot better, especially if you get to know them long before the next requirement or task order hits the street. Mythbuster. You don't need a fancy contact relationship management system in order to do this. The simple spreadsheet is our friend. If you have a contact relationship management system, great, but you don't want to put thousands of people in there. Sometimes what you need to do is when you're doing lead collection and really lead nurture. When I was a little kid, I grew up in Canada. And so in Brownies, we got to do the Gardener Award or Gardener Badge. And we got to go and get the pretty little seed packets and plant seeds. And we planted them in the clay in the cold, and it was cold, and all of this, everything died. This is because we didn't understand that you needed to plant things in a cold frame. You needed to plant these tiny little seedlings in a place where they could grow up and start to take root. And then you could transplant them again into some place where they could put down deeper roots. The spreadsheet is like your cold frame. It's a place where you can nurture the leads, water them, see what grows, and then transplant them into all the lead development, the heavier duty tools that you may have in your company for lots more personal attention. But you need to be able to nurture them first and figure out what's going to grow. So what exactly do they need to hear from us? Great question. And I have some stuff for you. I have something, it's called the Govcon Personas Guide. And it's 22 pages of goodness. It's unpacking the players at all the layers. And I'm going to drop this link, if I can do this, if I can manage to do this right. There we go. I'm going to drop this in the chat if I've done this right. And hang on for a second. And because I spell well and type badly. So hang on a sec here. Let's see if I can do this. And all right. Yeah, there we go. Send. Okay, link is there. And so you can click on this and download it. It's 22 pages of goodness, giving you some insight into the players at all 5 layers and what to do, what to say, what to ask as you are building relationships. So I unpack this from the daily practice I have with my clients, and it should give you some ideas for how to build relationships with the players at all the layers. We talk about them a little bit more in my book as well. And this is fundamental. You might go, oh, well, this is basic. Everybody knows this. You know, if everybody were doing it, everybody would be winning the contracts you want to win. So check this out, share it with your team, tell other people about it. So action steps you can take now. And then I'm going to ask you and ask for more questions. What kinds of things are you going to do next? Be sure to research the 6 sources. Start with the people you know. You've got some ideas for things to talk to them about. People that you've heard of or who have heard of you. Third step, contacts of record, ones whose names are attached to past, present, future, contract intelligence. Agency directories, LinkedIn, and Google. Build out your map of the players at all 5 layers in whatever agency you want to do business, and think about what's their big goal? What does a win look like for them? What are the milestones on the road to that win for them? How can you, with every contact, every call, every voicemail, every email, leave them with the sense that you know what they care about? You're leaving a message about a best value per company, a case study you've done, an advantage you bring that you know brings them closer to their goals. That drip, drip, drip. Once you've chosen your target agencies with care, you can keep showing up with confidence and not go, oh, we called them last month. Maybe they'll think we're like too pesky. You're going to keep in touch and keep following up and find that sweet spot between apathy and pestilence. And it's different for everybody. Some people like voicemail, some people hate phone calls, but you'll find it. And you will do that when you keep showing up persistently because you've made a choice of your right target agencies. That's what I have to offer for you. I would love to know, based on our time together, what one thing are you going to do as a result of what you've learned here today? What one thing are you going to do? What commitment are you going to make? And by when? What are you going to do next? Let's find out. Hey, Norris likes my stuff. This makes me very happy. And Norris Middleton at MST is MSTI is one of the most experienced business owners in National Veteran Small Business Coalition. If I brought him stuff that he felt was useful, then that made my whole day. So let's see, what other things are you going to do as a result of being here today? What idea, what takeaway did you get? What aha did you have? Let's see. What have you got? And Earl, what questions do you have?
Hey, Judy, let me see. Question number one. Why is the players and layers methodology so important?
Players and layers methodology is important because there are people in so many job roles who all have an influence on whether the organization really likes what you've got, really trusts you with their mission, trusts you with their responsibilities, and trusts you with what's going to happen in their professional and personal lives. You know from your own experience that one black mark in the file can follow you around for your whole career. Isn't that right, Earl?
Yes.
Exactly right. Understandably, folks are really risk averse. So making sure that folks at every layer are lined up and want that work to go to you. Can you imagine that would be better than, well, contracting likes you, but the end users hate you? Not so good.
Yeah.
Have everybody pulling for you.
Right. Okay, so what criteria is most important when you pick our target organization or agency?
Well, you want to know that the people in that agency need and use what you do. So past contract data can show that to you. You want to know that they're spending money, not more than a tiny bit of money. There's some real resources available, real spending to be done on the products and services that you offer. And so and you also want to figure out, so those are the two biggies, and to be able to know how you can differentiate yourself. What do you have to offer that's an advantage over the suppliers are already doing business with? So those three things, mission, spend, and differentiation, those are very high on my list of the criteria that I use when my clients and I talk about where it makes sense to focus.
Okay. And my favorite question, what is the biggest mistake companies make in business development and capture?
Wow. Biggest mistake. Biggest mistake. It would probably be to not develop relationships in all the places and then to give up too soon. So the lack of focus is the single biggest mistake that people make. When you focus, then you have the confidence to repeatedly show up and just keep building the relationships because you have the confidence, you have the data, you've chosen them because you know they are the people that you are meant to serve. So giving up too soon and inadequate focus, that combination is fatal. But now that you've been here, you aren't going to make that mistake. And I'm excited for all the places that you are going to go. So I'm looking to see what are all the things that people are going to do. Folks are talking about, I'm going to request a follow-up appointment. I like that. Someone says, speak with a minimum of 5 people per week and be sure that they are buying what I do. Excellent. Great. Let's see here. Fantastic. You're on the right track, folks. I'm really excited for what it is that you've got ahead of you. So we covered a lot. We talked about what's a lead. We talked about the players at all the layers, 6 federal lead sources you can tap. We talked a little bit about tools and templates, including use a spreadsheet for the sake of Mike, even if you don't have a fancy schmancy database system. Get it in a spreadsheet, for heaven's sake. The 4 keys unlock federal wins, and here they are. First, define and identify your specific contacts. Know what to do, what to say, and what to ask to build relationships. Create a structured federal sales plan around just those contacts, and then use the plan. Stay engaged and develop relationships with those people who you know they are your people. Nothing will stop you. Be relentless in the right place. That's it. So happy to take additional questions. If need be, I am your resource. I'm here for you. Earl, what's coming up for you? Any comments or thoughts? And if you've got other questions, please put up a hand or drop your questions in the box.
Well, I could tell I wish I had this trained 20 years ago. This is great, Jude. Thank you so much for doing this. Do you have any questions? We have about a couple more minutes before we sign off.
I can hang around for another few minutes if you'd like. If you are newer to federal contracting in particular, or you're deciding whether or not to enter or get more deeply involved in the federal market, go grab chapter 1 of my book for free right off my website. The book itself is an Amazon #1 bestseller, and there's now a companion workbook, which includes 5 different exercises on federal contract past federal contract data and market research. And so grab them off Amazon, use them with your team. Companies that have multiple years of business, multi-million dollars in business, still find the book valuable, which is really gratifying to me. And so I welcome your questions. I would love the opportunity to serve you, custom live training for you and your community. This is what I do. I do 1 8-week program working with individual companies and their teams who want to change your success trajectory in the federal market. That is all I do. If you think we might be right to chat, drop me a note, connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's pick up the conversation. I'm here to help you find the life you love in a business you love, serving a country you love.